Right now, though, TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which basically means the United States and the European Union and their plans to form what would be, in effect, the world's biggest trading bloc. If it comes off, it could create millions of new jobs and increase trade by billions of dollars, much needed stimulus for the global economy. But many are not convinced. They say it's undemocratic and will only increase the power of big business. With a special report forecasting the cost, here's Laurence Lee.
The fine countryside of Somerset in Western England might look an unlikely sort of place for an American corporate takeover. But the hills here sit on shale, and that is a fracking company's dream. Fracking for gas has proved less and less viable in England as concerns mount about things like pollution of the water table. But the trade deal, called TTIP, would, these people fear, put power firmly back in the hands of the corporations.
If, for example, a local community and a local planning officer decided that they didn't want to have fracking within their location and they turned down an application, the companies could sue if they thought their profits were going to be damaged.
So little has been reported on the TTIP negotiations that its critics have begun to feel a deliberate cover-up is in train. We went with them from London to Brussels, where the 8th round of negotiations is underway. The view from here is that TTIP is the pinnacle of the neoconservative dream of a world ruled by the marketplace.
They have the right to challenge any law or regulations brought in to protect either people or the environment over the coming years. What it's backed up with is something called the ISDS, the Investor State Dispute Settlement Mechanism, which is basically a very small secretive court staffed by corporate lawyers who will decide guilty or not, and they can impose huge fines on countries.
It sounds like you're saying it makes sovereign governments hostage to the interests of big corporations.
That's exactly what it means. Sovereign governments are absolutely losing power over this, and that power is going to corporate interests.
Once in Brussels, they were given the guided tour. Their hosts have got used to doing this for concerned European citizens. But the reactions are always the same when they point out that there are some 20,000 lobbyists who spend more than €1 billion a year pressing the flesh with politicians in the interests of their employers. And is it these people, these lobbyists, who are selling TTIP?
Well, industry lobbyists were very closely involved in the preparations of the TTIP talks. So when the European Commission started out preparing for the talks with the US, they consulted very closely with industry, whereas they left trade unions and NGOs excluded, more or less not without a voice in the preparations.
Tobacco, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, mining, it's all covered by the secret TTIP talks. And in this closed world of lobbying, the campaigners see an air of menace, of global corporations bending national democracies to their will. Supporters of the European Union very often say that it defends workers' interests and guarantees basic freedoms. Yet this description of the European project says something else completely, that its primary function is to defend the interests of global business. But does it matter if TTIP will allow corporations to take legal action against elected politicians who stand up to them? Are people here really planning the end of European laws guaranteeing workers' rights? Is the unelected European Commission a better arbiter of these things than voters? These questions seem to matter less to TTIP's supporters, who point out eagerly just how much growth there could be from reductions in trade tariffs.
Consumers may see some cheaper prices. So, for example, things like just tariffs on jeans that are imported from the US, maybe some of the electronics that we have, like computers and iPads, etc. Consumers may well see them getting cheaper because these tariffs, these taxes have been removed.
Campaigners had hoped to lobby some members of the European Parliament in Brussels, but only one was prepared to meet them, and she's in the Green Party, which opposes TTIP anyway. And what could she tell us about the negotiations? Nothing, she said, because she's not allowed to.
Well, it absolutely is secret. I mean, I went to the restricted reading room this morning. I was treated like a spy. You know, I had to sign a special declaration so I wouldn't tell anybody what I'd read when I was there. So what's actually being negotiated, apparently on our behalf, is completely secret. And even things that I'm allowed to see now as a result of huge pressure, I still can't share with you.
All of which left the anti-fracking campaigners from Somerset feeling even more worried than they were to start with.
I believe they do understand the depth of our feeling against it. It's just sad that they can't come out and talk to us about it and explain why they're still going along with something that they know isn't right.
Of all Europe's politicians with any real say over this, the one who has come out against TTIP is the new Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. He's said he hates it so much he'll use his power to veto it. That could cost European business $100 billion. But if the protesters are right, it could also prevent the entry of a Trojan horse, a trade deal dressed up as good news for consumers, but which underneath is a corporate takeover of European democracy. Laurence Lee, counting the costs in Brussels.